That was a weird sentence. Hello YouTube world, Deanna here. Thanks so much for coming by. I am talking today about the 10 literary terms that I have heard while learning more about writing and being an author. So breaking into AuthorTube, it's a bit of its own little world and its own little community. And it's definitely a community that I am seeing is can be very close-knit, and there's a lot of terms that are used as authors love words. We are connoisseurs of words. Where you may love a fine wine, we love a really fine prose. And with that, there comes a lot of different types of words that you can see. And if you're a newbie to AuthorTube, like I am, sometimes those terms can make you go, huh? So I thought I would compile a few of the terms that I have heard that I have learned while exploring the world of being an author. So number one, the term that maybe you already know it, maybe you don't, but it's a term that will be used again and again across the world of being an author, and that is WIP. W-I-P. What does that stand for? Work in progress. So essentially that is a term or acronym, a word that authors will use when they are talking about the book or project that they are working on. So it is their book or writing piece that is currently in progress of being completed, and therefore it is work in progress, which is WIP. The second phrase that I have seen a lot across the author world is pub. That is definitely a shortened version, abbreviation, that I have seen of the word published. The pub is essentially when you are actually published. You are out there, your work has been made into a book, whether that is self-published or traditionally published. That's a whole different conversation and has a lot of different thoughts on both sides, some very positive, some not so positive. So that's its own world of whether you should self-publish or traditionally publish, but pub can be something that maybe can be used here and there for the word published when you are a published author. Another term that I have used since exploring AuthorTube is a term that I had never heard of before recently, and that is zero draft. The word zero draft is something I have seen authors use when they're talking about the core baseline of their first ever attempt at writing down their idea. So their zero draft is when there is literally boom out the gate. 3, 2, 1, bang, they're going. And they're writing a zero draft. It can have all kinds of things thrown at it. Maybe it's really detailed and outlined. Maybe it's just them flying by the seat of their pants. Whatever that is, it is their zero draft. It is their first attempt to get that idea onto a page and really go through and write all that out. It's gonna be maybe the zero draft is going to have all kinds of mistakes, issues, just need a whole rewrite done, as most works do need when they're written. But a zero draft is that chance for that writer to just boom, go, let's go. Point zero, let's get it all on the page. And that is zero draft. Term number 4 that I have heard used within AuthorTube is the word arc. A-R-C, arc. This one made me go a bit, I got an idea out of the context of what was being said when I first came across this word of what it meant, but I didn't know what each letter in the acronym was supposed to stand for. And so I had to go to trusty Google to find out what is an ARC. And there is two different versions I've seen of the word ARC. There is advanced reader copy and advanced review copy. So advanced reader copy and advanced review copy, whatever you believe it is, ARC, is essentially when an author or its publishing team is sending out a book to individuals to read it before it's officially published. And this is, as the saying goes, an advanced reader copy is a chance for someone that enjoys reading to get their hands on the book and really give it a good read through and then put a review on whatever platform they may be on, whether that's Goodreads, YouTube, their blog, wherever they may have a pretty significant following, or sometimes not even that many people. It's just an opportunity for publishers to really get that book out there. So that is something that I would love to explore more, because how do you even become an advanced reader copy person? Is there a word for that? How do you become a pre-reviewer? How do you become a booktuber? I mean, those probably, I would think, get the most ARCs out there would be people who have a big booktuber following. That's a whole different thing again. I'm not going to get into that. Just to say, essentially, advanced reader copy, which is what it's generally referred to, is an opportunity for someone to get their hands on that book before it's officially published. Now, my next two terms that I'm going to talk about go a bit hand in hand, and that is pantser versus plotter. So the term pantser is something that I've definitely heard since exploring AuthorTube, and it can also be referred to as discovery writing or discovery writer. And a pantser is very much what the name pretty much implies. They fly by the seat of their pants. Maybe they have an idea or a concept or some kind of thought of how a book should go. They've got a good idea and they want to just run with it. They're not going to take time to really lay it all out or anything. They want to do what is called discovery writing, which is where they want to take that idea, maybe it's a scene in their head or a conversation between two characters, and they want to say, hey, there's something here, let me work with that and build it out. And they will go by, as I said, the seat of their pants to discover what that book is and how the arc of the book and the relationships and all of that good stuff, character development, is going to go. So that is a pantser, where on the opposite spectrum you have what's called a plotter, or they are also referred to as an outliner or an outline writer. They essentially are a type of author that has to have an outline of where their book is going. Now, that in itself can be very varied, and I have seen a bit of debate on even what outlining means. So some people think it is very detailed. I know exactly what's going to happen at all these different points in the book. I have my starting intro, my hook, my inciting incident, all of these different things, beats happening, boom, 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 and they can get very, very detailed and descriptive in what exactly is in their outline to help guide them through the development of their book and their characters. They might have a lot of backstory, they might have a lot of, well, I know that in 1965 he was a 15-year-old boy, so that means in this day he was this age, and here's his astrological sign, and here's like his, I've seen people even do their personality type and different things like that, because that really helps those type of writers really get inside their character's head, understand how the world works and really be able to run with it. I think sometimes this can depend on the type of book that's being written or what's kind of happening, because sometimes to be an outliner, you're doing it because you know that certain things are happening and you have to make sure they're happening in certain ways or they can mess with the book. However, you can still be a pantser and do this and learn as you go and make sure when you're going back and editing it all makes sense and that you have no big plot holes. So very much an outliner can be that very, very detailed version of outlining, but they also can be a bit more leaning towards pantsing, but having maybe a general outline. Maybe they know, okay, I know this is my beginning, I know this is happening in my middle, I know this is my end. Maybe there's some gray area in between. That's a rough outline of what's happening, but then maybe they use a bit of that pantsing to fill in all the rest. So I think it really depends on each individual author, what their writing style is, what they're writing, where their idea is taking them, and how they enjoy the craft of being an author and getting a beautiful world out to. The main thing that all authors are looking to succeed at is taking an idea inside their head, building it out, making it something fun and exciting and intriguing, and just you have to have it, and giving that all out to the world and letting the world see the magic that they've made. Yeah, those would be the terms and the differences between a pantser and a plotter. Let me know if you have any thoughts about that down below, because I know that's a whole conversation and I could do probably a whole video just on that alone. So the seventh term that I have heard in the author community is the word sub. Now, sub is a word that made me again go, huh? Like, I'd never really heard it in the context, and really it was a bit of something that when I hear the word sub, I think of substitution, or I could think of subscribers, or just a sub that I eat. But I was not really sure what it meant in the context of the AuthorTube world. So I had to think about it a bit. And essentially what the word sub means is submission. When an author, and usually their agent, has their work out to publishers for submission. They are looking to have the book that usually has gone through their drafting stages, the editing stages. It's usually good, it's as polished as the author and the agent usually think it should be for the point of submission. Now, all of that on how it gets to there, that's something I'm still learning as I'm discovering, but I do know that when you hear the word sub and it's in relation to the phases of writing of a book and the stages that a book goes through, it means it's at the submission stage, so it is out there to the publishing world in an attempt to get it out to the public. It's honestly a very crucial step to trying to get your books out there and get them on bookshelves. It's not done in self-publishing when you're doing submissions. It's usually typically traditional publishing that you're sending them out for submission. The eighth term that I have heard since getting into AuthorTube and writing is the word Scrivener. Now, some authors are probably going to be, wow, that's like my bread and butter pretty much. I live on Scrivener. And I had no idea. I heard the term Scrivener a couple years ago, actually, when I first was writing some of my other works that I started on, and when I just dipped my toe a bit into what it's like to be an author. And I kept hearing this term Scrivener, but I never explored it. I was arrogant in my thoughts of what Scrivener was, and I was like, oh, it's just a community type platform kind of like Wattpad, where authors get together and just like send each other their ideas and stuff like that. That's kind of what, in my ignorance, I thought it was. And I was way too shy, too timid, too insecure in what I was doing back then to really go ahead and explore it more. And it's been really the last couple of years where I've had this kind of moment of like, hey, if you really want to take this seriously, if you really want to see what it's like and get your books out there and get published and be a published author, you need to stop having your nose in the air thinking that you know everything. You need to humble yourself down a bit, come down back to basics, and figure out what's out there. What does all this stuff mean? So when I heard Scrivener again recently, I was like, hey, that's that thing I was hearing about. What is it? Is it something I should explore? And I did. I looked into it. My mind was blown when I saw Scrivener. I was like, whoa, this is so different than what I thought it was. It is not a community platform. It is a application type program that an author can use to write their book. It's literally taking word processing like Microsoft Word or Google Docs and blowing it to like another stratosphere. So it is something that has definitely, as you can tell, blown my mind. It's not for everyone. Not every author is going to love Scrivener and use Scrivener. I think there's other ones that are coming out too that kind of are giving Scrivener a bit of some competition here and there. But Scrivener is essentially something that really changed writing for me, because I was writing in my good old word processing, Microsoft Word. Here and there I had some Google Docs. I was that person that had a Microsoft Word document, and then I would have one for like some scenes, and then I had like another version for like other scenes, and then I had like 5 different versions, I think, of my one whip that I was doing. There's that term, of just different variations and saving it, and this is version 1, this is version 2, this is version 300. Like, they were all over the place, and trying to marry them all together, it was too much. And I think that's a big reason on why I put down my book and walked away, because it was too overwhelming. It was too hard keeping track of where am I, what is this, what's going on. Wah! So when I came to this with, okay, let's see what tools and resources are there. Obviously this Scrivener is a great thing. Let's look into it. And when I did and saw the potential that this program has, and the just way it works to keep track of some of your notes and all, oh, I'm getting too into Scrivener. That's a whole different video maybe if you're interested. But let me just say, yes, I have found some love in Scrivener, and it is definitely a must needed tool in my tool belt now as a writer. Scrivener. That was definitely a very cool term to discover what it meant. The last 2 words that I'm going to talk about in this top 10, well, list of 10 author terms is tell versus show. So again, tell versus show. Probably something, if you've been at all on any author's channels or you've been an author yourself, you have definitely heard show versus tell. And that is something that, again, bit of a debate about maybe here and there, but tell versus show can sometimes depend a bit on your writing style, who you are as an author, how you want to show your story, how you want to tell your story, how you want your story out there in a book. And the first term, tell, is very much like what it sounds. It's where you are telling the story, but you're not showing a lot of it. Let's break that down. So telling is when you are essentially like Jane went to the mall, or a really good example, Jane was mad. She was really mad. That's telling. You are telling me how Jane is feeling, and really, you're not showing me. Sometimes tell can be very fitting for your scene or what's happening, or because maybe you've got so much show that your whole book is show, and sometimes you want to scroll back and give a little bit of tell. So it really depends on the situation. But my other term, which is show, is where essentially you're showing that Jane is mad. You're not just telling me on the page Jane is mad. You are saying it, maybe you're describing it like Jane's brows furrowed and her nostrils flared. She clenched her fists, set her teeth, and glared at me. Like, that is showing. Jane's pretty upset. What is Jane upset about? That's more. But Jane is upset. You are showing me Jane is upset. So that is showing, and that is the difference in tell versus show, and why these two words kind of go together. And again, like I said, sometimes you need some tell and sometimes you need some show. You really got to find a balance, and I think that just comes with more experience, more writing, more reading as well. Reading, big thing as an author, but really it comes to learning more about the craft and learning more about your own author style and how you portray your characters and your world and your story to your reader. And if there's a lot of just tell, that's gonna swing the book one way. If there's a lot of show, it's probably gonna swing in another. And the best combination is probably a nice little marriage of the two where they live in happy harmony, and your book is a wonderful display of both having a bit of tell and a bit of show to make that story really connected together. So again, that's tell versus show. It's a whole thing, but those are definitely terms that I have heard when I'm breaking into AuthorTube. That is something that, as I said, I'm putting that in my tool belt of show versus tell, when to use them. I find myself, even while I'm writing out my stories, I'm like, ooh, that's some telling. Yep, okay, yeah, that fits there. Ooh, no, this needs to be a bit more showing. Let's build this out. I do find too something that is a bit of a difference between tell and show. As my example was, Jane is mad. That's like 3 words. Maybe you can stretch it out to Jane is extremely mad and have 4 words, but that's going to be a bit less of a word count. So if your goal is to kind of build out that word count if you find that you are an underwriter, then go back through your book and find some places where you can show a bit more of, I mean, when I gave my example of the Jane clenched her fists and everything, that was a lot more than just 3 or 4 words. So that can really help to build out maybe a sentence or a scene, and it can really make the reader feel a lot more engaged and a lot more in the moment and feeling that themselves, and like, ooh, or sometimes it even can help sometimes just not be so boom, here it is in your face, reader, they're mad. And when you draw it out a bit, sometimes the reader can be like, what's going on here? Ooh, is she mad? Oh, yeah, she's mad. Look at the way that it's written. She's got to be mad. And the way the scene plays when you're showing, you're really getting the reader to be more invested in the story and more, as I said, engaged in it, and just kind of a bit more excited and feeling those feelings. So that can very much be a plus side for show. But tell, sometimes you just want to tell them some straight facts, not get really into it. Maybe it's a bit of like, here, let's tell you a bit of this to move it along. Like, again, it's all about learning where they go and building that out as you write and as you get more and more experienced and learning the craft more. So show versus tell. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for checking in. Were there any terms on this list that you didn't know when you first heard it, or maybe you have known them for a long time? Go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Thanks again so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. Take care of yourself and don't forget to shine bright. Bye!